and welcome to the Your Success Personally podcast with your host, yours truly, Vanessa G, where we will talk about success as defined by you. Here, we don't look at the playbook of others to bring you down. Instead, we are going to cover topics that pertain to how you, as an individual, can reach your goals and potential. Don't look at others to define your success. You create it. Your rules, your way, and how you get there. Are you ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Your Success Personally podcast. I am your host, yours truly, Vanessa G. How's everybody doing? Happy fall. I am doing. I'm doing, and I say that with a smile on my face. I know my response is a little vague, but I will talk more about me later. Today, I would like to talk about this episode. The title is Your Mid-Year Review. I'm pretty excited about it. And I know you may be wondering, Vanessa, we're in October right now. At least that's when this will be published. More than half of the year is done. So what are you talking about doing a mid-year review? So yes, based on the calendar, we have indeed passed the midpoint of the year. However, how many of you have really felt the pause that the coronavirus pandemic has created in this world, huh? I know personally, just canceling, reworking, reimagining activities that led to how or if I was going to complete my goals did require a personal pause during the pause of the shutting down of the country to regroup. I had to pause within the pause during the pandemic. This pandemic season is not over. So I don't think doing a mid-year review is such a new concept as it pertains to doing an end-of-year review, which that also excites me. It's not something that I had been doing all my life, all my grown-up life. The idea did come from somewhere else, but I wanted to try it out on a group. I kind of rethought the process in that, and so I did a group. I got a group together about 2 years ago. I invited a few friends over, and I did a presentation on this. And I have to say that it was the first time I even considered doing my own year in review. But I received good feedback regarding the process. And, even with me working individually on my own, it helped me to define my own desire to explore my goals and also how I foresaw how talking about success, topics of organization, personal self-management, and self-awareness could also be a help to others. So what I'm saying is, I think I had this concept for this podcast in mind, but I really didn't have clarity. And so going through that process of doing a year end review really helped me to begin to conceptualize what I was thinking about for doing this podcast. So the year in review process is something you do at the end of your current year, and you record and reflect on all the successes and fails in all aspects of your life, right? So remember, success isn't just about, getting the paper, right? Getting the money. But there may be personal goals that pertain to other areas of life, like, for example, relationship building, that if you were successful, can really enhance your life, right? The year in review process is also an opportunity to look at and see what didn't work and why. It isn't a process to beat yourself up with, but to do some objective analysis of plans, processes, and your role and accountability, and use it as a motivation to do better in the next year. So, with that said, the mid year review, I feel, considering when the pandemic pause took place in March, that now is a good time to look back at the last 6 months and see how you were able to pivot in this pandemic season. I want to encourage you that even if the pandemic significantly derailed your goals in 2020, you still have the next few months before the end of the year to get on track or to begin to create a plan, to tie up loose ends, and formulate a new plan that you can execute in the beginning of 2021. Why should you do this? Well, you really don't have to, but if you are someone like me who is beginning something new or have begun something new, if you feel like you haven't really accomplished anything, or feel like you maybe are doing too much and don't have a clear focus, if any of those things sound like you, then doing a mid-year review and an end-of-year review is a must. Okay? So for me, I am happily surprised at my mid-year review. And let me put some of this into context. So, like everyone else, I didn't see a coronavirus pandemic. And like everyone else, I had some special plans as well for 2020. You know, I remember late 2019, I believe around November, I did my year in review. I knew I didn't wait till the December 31st to do it. I started pretty early. And one of the things that came out of it, what direction, it's the question to myself, what direction do I want my life to go? What did I want to represent in the next year, And let me tell you, I'm not saying that I've lived a meaningless life, but for sure, these deeper questions did not occur to me to ask myself at the end of each year. I think I would dare say much of my life has been in the moment. Not to say that I didn't make plans, but to what end, right? For anything bigger, for anything significant. It depended, I guess. It depended on what it was that I was hoping to do. But I truly spent time looking to get clear on the directionality of my life for 2020, and also about my representation, right? And there were things on my list that have been in process, but doing the review, the year-end review, it took me through a thoughtful approach to looking at my life. I had come up with a word for the year 2020, right? Late last year. And that word came up, again, I think I saw cultivatewhatmatters.com. They have a product called Power Sheets, and the founder of that product, I believe she encouraged in her goal planning books and such to create a word or think of a word that you want to embody or represent in your coming year as you make your plans. And I thought that was a pretty decent idea, and I thought about it. I'm like, and it led me to think even deeper in terms of not just what transpired over 2019, but maybe even just looking back. I know I did. I know I looked back even past on how I was approaching my life and decided that I did want to be more intentional, and I did want to be more thoughtful, especially in this point in my life. I don't want to be willy-nilly in the years ahead. I really wanted to create some focus, and certainly allow for flexibility. So the word after, I really kind of wrestled with it, if you would. I just kind of allowed myself to think, to reflect, and even be still. And the word I came up with for 2020 was live, right? That was my word. And it truly has been a way to help me focus in this year. And, upon further reflection, I was able to put a wonderful scripture passage in the forefront of my mind also, along with that word live. And that scripture comes from out of the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 10. And it's the later part of the verse where it says, I, and that'd be Jesus, have come that they may have life and they may have it more abundantly. Wow. When that came together for me, it was everything. And it truly helped me to focus in how I thought about what 2020 would be like for me. I think at some point on the podcast, I will share what my driving force is, at a later time. But listen, much of that driving force, much of what I had hoped to do, a lot of it had to do with the podcast and not just the podcast. But it is certainly a premise for me for the podcast, being able to help people understand what success can be and having the conversation. When you're so busy criticizing your progress and where you are in life, when you can't see how successful you are because you're so focused on other people's successes and trying to measure up to it, or what you perceive to be successful. This energy, this is the energy, those things that is very real for people. That's the energy behind developing this podcast for me, because that description was actually me. I had done that. Sometimes just looking at others and saying, well, how come, my success doesn't look like that? And as a matter of fact, at times, depending on what it was that I was trying to achieve, I didn't even feel successful. But it was so untrue. It's almost like a lie that we tell ourselves, right? So this is the energy behind developing this podcast. And we have to realize, and this is especially why I want to share, is that life is moving forward. It isn't stopping, and it's not going backwards. You can look at other people's successes, and not to say that you can't look, not to say you can't admire or feel good for them. But when do you see your success? When do you see your success? For me, as I engaged in that 2019 year in review, I realized some of my goals were met, and I even did a deeper reflection of my life and surprised myself on how far I had come. I spent time in prayer. I'm a person of faith. It's what I do. And it was crucial for me to understand why this word live was raised in my spirit. And before 2020 began, I knew I wanted to live. This is quite personal for me, and it was a powerful experience. I knew I wanted to live. This word and scripture for me was the foundation that carried me through progressing in my goals for this year, 2020, and kept me motivated during the pause of the pandemic so that I can continue. Did I have to do some reimagining on some things? of course. But I'm happy to say that the launch of this podcast, the fact that I'm nearing my 10th episode, and some of the other goals that I'm not yet ready to disclose have come to fruition. I believe that this happened because I took the time to review what was in 2019, and I gave God room to direct what would be for me in 2020. So, a mid-year review is helpful in seeing where you are in the midpoint of your year, whenever your year starts, and to do an objective evaluation. And I again stress being objective. Negative reinforcement can only take you so far. Better to look objectively at your life as to what's working, what's not. And then you have the space to do some brainstorming on how to fix it. Now, how you do your mid-year review is up to you. You can do it formally by breaking down your list of questions based on your specific life areas you want to look at, or you can carve out a good amount of time. Even if you could get a day, that would be great. And do it freestyle, be relaxed and start recording your thoughts and recollections on what has transpired. And just let those things come to you, as you think them, write it down. That's a real informal way to do it, and, totally fine. It's up to you, however way you do it, but I guarantee you it will be time well spent. So what about you? Do you make time to do a self-assessment in your mid-year? Is it only about your work, or do you take time to look at all aspects of your life and your goals for them? Would this be your first time if you decided to try? Well, I say go ahead and try it. You may be surprised by what you may discover about yourself. Until next time, go out there and be a goal-getter. Take good care. So, we've come to the end of our time together today. I hope our discussion was helpful to you. I wish you positive vibes and encourage you to do you as you climb the ladder of success. If you are feeling this episode, leave a comment. And if you are really loving this, please subscribe and join the success journey. For more encouragement along the way, follow me on Instagram or Twitter at Your Success Personally, and continue to listen wherever podcasts can be found. And remember, your success by your rules. Bye-bye.